Hello guys, in today's video I'll be covering the breeding and production of grasscutter. So I'm here again on Tuntum's grasscutter farm to ask him some few details, questions about how to breed grasscutter. Tuntum, tell us about the heat period, the maturity.
Yes, grasscutters from birth, as we all know, we have a male and then a female grasscutter. They both attain maturity differently. The female grasscutter attains maturity earlier than the males. Grasscutter attain maturity when they attain 5 to 6 months in females. Then the animal is ready to be crossed. That is when we use the term ready to be crossed female grasscutters. Now, the male takes a little while before they get maturity, and their maturity attained between 6 to 7 months. That is when they begin to get the brownish testicle I showed earlier on. So this young male here, you can see this young male here will be 6 months. Will be 6 months in few weeks from now. Will be 6 months few weeks from now. So you can see the testicle is brownish. This means that when you give it to a female, it will be able to cross this. Now, the female grasscutter attains maturity from 5 to 6 months. That is when they begin to come on heat. Someone will ask, what is heat? The heat period is an acceptance period of animals where the female voluntarily allows the male to climb it or to cross it for them to reproduce. These female grasscutters attain heat period when they are 5 to 6 months, and they mostly come on heat when they have the presence of male grasscutters around them. So for instance, I want to cross a male and then a female grasscutter. This is what we do. This is a male grasscutter here, and then this is a female. We keep them side by side.
So that they can see each other?
Yes, they have to see each other so the male can seduce the female to come on heat.
Okay.
So when the female come on heat, you will have to lift it and check the wetness of the vagina. Then you put the female to cross.
They are males?
One male, one female.
So you want them to cross each other?
They have been kept to cross.
Okay. Why would you cross two albinos?
Yes, we cross two albinos if we want to breed an albino color. If you want the catlings to be albinos, you breed the two albinos and then they will birth all albino whites.
What about black, then the albino?
When you cross a black and then albino, their first time of birth, you will not be able to get the albino because of their genes.
Okay.
The animals will have to have some albino genes in them before you'll be able to get all white. So first time when you cross a black and then a white, you'll be able to get a black color. So now you have to cross the children again before you begin to get an albino.
The one on heat?
Yes, so to be I want to say I will get.
What happens if the female is not on heat before you give to the male?
Yes, when the female is not on heat and then you keep it in the cage of the male. There are certain males, grasscutter males, that do not have patience for the females to come on heat before mating. especially when they have been sexually starved. They will have to jump on the female by force, and when the female is not ready for mating, they will end up beating the female, and sometimes the female may even die. Yes, so there are certain technicalities involved when it comes to mating in grasscutter. It can be a little dicey and difficult.
Okay. This one looks mobile.
If the level is low.
She's dry.
If you pray, you go see say that place. If you don't, you go see that place go. What? This way I can't lead to a pass.
Why you no cross them?
I won't wait them, cross them or in badges.
Okay.
When you cross them in badges, they bond together.
Okay.
So that if they harvest, you go feel harvest more.
Oh, okay. So currently I can see that you are crossing the black one, then the albino one.
Yeah.
But how would you know that they have finished crossing?
Yes, what happens here is when the animal is on heat, you realize that the vagina is open and then the vagina is wet. So you based on that wetness and then keep the female grasscutter into the cage of the male grasscutter. We do not send males into the cages of the females because grasscutters are territorial markers. So now, if the male is in their cage and you bring in the female, the landlord here is the male. So it has dominated its territory and it will be easier and faster for the male grasscutter to climb on the female. There are certain females that refuses to be crossed. So if you are taking the male into the cage of the female, because the female grasscutter has already dominated its territory, it begins to fight the male grasscutter. So that is why it is so important that you keep the females in the cages of the males so that they will have an easy access to mate. Now, after mating, you realize that the first time you can see the size of the vagina. The next day after it has been made, you realize that the vagina is extra open. Yourself, technically, you will see that there has been penetration.
Something pass inside.
Yes, you go see say something passes inside. That is one sign. Now, after a successful mating, you will begin to see signs of pregnancy in the female grasscutter. Number one, you realize that the female grasscutter sleeps a lot. Like you can see now, it is still sleeping. It is pregnant, so it is at the early stages of pregnancy, like 2 months. But when the pregnancy attains 3 months, you realize that the stomach begins to palpate. The stomach begins to get bigger, and then the nipples also begins to show when it lies down. Then it tells you that your animal is pregnant, and then you are expecting babies in the few coming months.
How do you still, at this point, do you separate the pregnant one from the male?
Yes, after you realize we have two types of caging pregnant animal. There are some people who will allow the females to be with the males until they give birth. That is one. If you are doing that system of farming, then you have to have an extra bigger space, like 3 feet by 3 feet or 3 feet by 2 feet space, so that the male and then the female can live in with their catlings. Now, here what I do is I have pregnancy unit like I said earlier on. So after 3 months of being with the male grasscutter, I pick it from the pregnant animal from the male and introduce it to the pregnancy unit where it is given special attention such as feeding.
So at this point of separation, do you bundle all the pregnant grasscutters together, or you give them separate rooms?
Grass cutters are territorial markets, as we all know, so we give them all separate rooms so that each gives birth to its children separately. When you do this, you'll be able to know the parent of every animal. But when you keep them together, you'll not be able to tell who parents who. So it's always important that we keep them separately so we can have proper record keeping on the animals. Now, when they get pregnant, the animal should have a good environment, a stress-free environment, because there are certain factors that can abort the babies of the animal, or they can have miscarriage. One has to do with feeding them with cassava. If you feed them with cassava, the animal is likely, too much cassava is likely the animal will have a termination of pregnancy. If you feed them, there is too much starch in the cassava, and it also contains cyanide, which helps in the causation of miscarriage in grass cutters. And then also sugarcane. If you are giving red sugarcane or too much of sugarcane to the grass cutter, it also sterilizes the pregnancy and causes abortion because of the too much concentrate of sugar in the sugarcane. So if they are pregnant, we are not saying you don't give sugarcane, but give them in moderation.
At this point, do you have your special meal or diet that you give to the pregnant ones?
Yes, all you do is you give them varieties of food. When you give them variety, the medicine to these animals is what they feed on. So if you are giving them varieties, then you are giving them all the multivitamins they need as lactating mothers.
So at this point, how many months before they?
The gestation period of a grass cutter is 5 months.
5 months.
Yes.
Okay. Do you separate the mother, or is there any special treatment you give to them after giving birth?
Yes. What's happened is it all boils down to feeding. If you have a pregnant grass cutter, after giving the pregnancy care and they give birth, now you have to begin feeding fresh food to the animal, because that is the only way they can have enough breast milk in their breast to give to their babies. So you have to give them soft part of every food you are giving to, so that the young ones will be able to feed on. Because the younger catlings, the moment they are giving birth to, after a day or two, the younger ones have started eating already. So you always have to be giving fresh grass to your grass cutters, so that when they feed, their younger ones will also be able to feed on them.
Okay, at this point, after they have given birth, how many should I be expecting? And mortality?
Grass cutters litter 1 to 12 catlings, depending on how you are feeding them and hereditary. For instance, in my family, we are short, and you can see I'm not too tall.
Yeah.
Yes, grass cutters also inherit certain features from their background. So if you are buying grass cutter, you have to be asking of the parent stock. If the parent stock litters more, then you are also likely to have animals that will litter them more when you feed them very well. So feeding plays a very important role when it comes to grass cutter farming.
Because of time, in our next video, we'll talk about how to at least get that 12 number more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.